welcome. We're here today with Isabel Torrón, and we're very happy to be with her. Today we're gonna ask her some questions for our school. My first question is, what made you want to work in NASA?
So I think since I saw it on TV, there was one day where I saw it on TV, and ever since then I wanted to work there. I didn't care what I did, even if I was mopping the floors, all I wanted was to work for NASA. And since then, I think I was in 10th grade, and everything I read about, everything I talked about was all NASA oriented. It was almost like an obsession. And then from there, I think it was just the ability of having systems in place that would sustain human life where human life shouldn't be sustained. So right now you have the International Space Station. Mm-hmm. So that has been continuously manned for 20 years. That means that for the past 20 years there's always been somebody, at least 2 or 3 people in space. And that for me was mind-blowing. And so I wanted to be part of those teams. And so what conversations had to happen for that to happen, what technologies existed that made that happen. And so from there my interest and curiosity sort of branched out.
And what did you apply anywhere, or did you recruit, or you were recruited or anything?
Yeah, so through so when the time came to make the decision of what school I wanted to go to and what were my possibilities in school related, there was one school, which is the one I went to, which was Rhode Island School of Design, that had a program with NASA that you could take on your 3rd year. So I was okay, that's my best shot, I'm gonna go for it. And so the first year I actually showed up to the teacher's office and I was I know I can take the class, I know you don't know me, but I'm gonna work for NASA, and I want you to talk about about what that means and the reality of it, because NASA has this really big sci-fi connotation, and the reality of the actual work is very different. And so since then I just kept very in touch with that and the whole engineering side of things, and making sure that as a designer I could communicate to engineers as well. And so I joined an aerospace club, and everything was related to space. So when the time came to for the class, every year they selected a few interns, and so I got selected for that one, my 3rd year in college. So from there I started growing my network in space, and I always attended any space event that happened, and any student related event that happened around science and engineering. So there I met another guy who actually was looking for an intern, and so I tried interning for him, but just the skill set that he needed weren't the ones I had, but I knew somebody else who had those skill sets, so I passed that resume on, and he's oh, that's kind of cool, give me your resume and I'll pass it on to my team. And so he did, and that's where I'm now. So it was through networking and internships and just being involved in the topics and meeting different people and just being open to different possibilities.
Being connected.
Yeah, it's just the networking. It's that's the way to go.
My second question: what has been the most important obstacles, or that you have overcome, and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest obstacle that I've realized was almost myself in a really weird way. When I got here and I got my job, and it was a real job for the first time, I was very stressed all the time, to the point where I couldn't execute my work, because I was oh, I'm messing up at NASA, oh my god, it's just it was something that was impeding myself to do any type of work, because I was too afraid to mess up, but I also didn't know enough that I wouldn't mess up. So I had to sort of slowly learn that it was okay to make mistakes. I'm privileged enough to be in a team that encouraged me to try different things. So I think overcoming that was just trying different opportunities, running a study even though I'm not an engineer, figuring those type of things out, running data analysis when I've never done it before, and just asking around, looking dumb, but I mean, it's part of it. And so I think my biggest obstacle at one point was myself and my stress and my inability to control that stress.
So your team at NASA was a very influential part of it.
Yeah, and I'm super grateful for everybody that I've had the opportunity to work with so far. From friends from school that had interned at NASA, they were super supportive and showed me the way basically. And this past week I was with one of my best friends from college who works at another NASA center, and just having her as a mentor as well, and just having people around me that were in the business and challenged me to do different things, but also like supported me when like things went different. I think that has been super influential.
That's cool. Do you want to like invent something new at NASA or innovate?
So I'm in a team where we're trying to, they're developing this new vehicle, for example, and it's all part of UAM, which is urban air mobility. And it's this huge thing where they're trying to integrate vehicles, like flying vehicles and helicopters, into an urban area, so like a city. And so our innovation comes from making sure that whatever is being invented or designed is safe. And so for us, that's our priority. Like, you can invent whatever you want, but if it doesn't have metrics behind it, if it doesn't have like responsibilities behind it and people that are actually responsible for the things happening, then I think it's not really a valuable innovation, because it's doing more, it could be doing more harm than actually good. So for me, like, inventing something, maybe not from scratch, but like making sure that what is being invented is being done with like values of responsibility and just like honesty, and just like making sure that things are being done the correct way. I think that is where I see my job being more helpful in the innovation side.
And how did you contribute to society by working through this?
So I think the biggest thing when you have this sort of technology emerging is all the little things that come to start into play when developing. So for really hard things like this, like you start, for example, we're developing like new screens. Well, these screens like have different considerations that didn't have before. So we can tailor that into like aviation, for example, like normal aircraft. And so those type of issues that, you know, for example, one of the biggest issues with UAM vehicles is the fact that they're really noisy. So you don't want like a bunch of helicopters in your city. Like, that's just like, people are not going to be okay with that. So developing the technology that is needed to make a helicopter that quiet can not only be applied to that, it can also be applied to like normal aviation, like normal helicopters.
Yeah.
So in terms of society helping, it's more of like, how can we implement these technologies that are being developed for that into like a more normal setting or like more common setting.
Y esta es la última. En
Well,
español puede ser.
Okay.
my last question is going to be in Spanish. ¿Qué habilidades necesitas para desarrollar para llegar hasta donde estás hoy? ¿Y qué mensajes le darías a nuestros compañeros que están viendo esto en el colegio?
De motivación.
Yo creo que para mí la habilidad en el momento, por ejemplo en el colegio, cuando yo estaba en el colegio, era, ok, esto es lo que yo quiero, yo no sé qué yo voy a hacer para llegar ahí, pero cuáles son mis posibilidades para llegar ahí. O sea, que yo tengo que involucrarme en para tener el mayor chance a llegar a donde yo quiero. Entonces, para mí esa habilidad es como que, ok, poder ver, conectar los puntos. O sea, esta persona, tú ves, trabaja en la NASA, esta persona es diseñadora, esta persona es cosa, y que yo puedo coger de cada persona para poder agregarle valor a mi trabajo profesional. Como que ese tipo de conectar los puntos, eso para mí es bien importante. Y después, ¿cuál era tu otro?
Hay muchas cosas. ¿Qué mensajes le dirías a nuestros compañeros que están viendo esto y que les sirven motivación para seguir tu ejemplo en emprendimiento y liderazgo?
¿Qué mensaje? O sea, bueno, yo soy bien terca. Yo creo que yo le dije eso cuando estábamos hablando. Para mí, yo creo que, aunque eso a mi mamá, por ejemplo, le vuelve loca, yo creo que al final del día me ha funcionado, simplemente porque si yo quiero algo, como que yo voy a buscar la manera de hacerlo. Entonces, para mí eso ha sido lo más valioso que yo creo que puedo decirle a la gente, como que, bueno, si tú quieres algo, como que busca la forma de hacerlo. Y como que busca que tú puedas hacer en ese momento para poder decir, ok, si yo quiero en 3 años estar en X lugar, que yo tengo que aprender ahora para poder desarrollar mi habilidad a eso. Y yo creo que eso nunca para, o sea, yo estoy en ese proceso ahora mismo también, o sea que es eso.
Es un proceso para seguir.
Sí, o sea, es que, o sea, ya tú llegas, cumpliste esta meta, que es lo próximo y que yo tengo que hacer ahora para llegar a lo próximo. Y cómo yo puedo utilizar lo que yo tengo ahora en mi ventaja. O sea que,
Gracias por vernos y estar con nosotros.